So welcome to my 387th attempt to make a video. I've really been trying to get back to work for like the last 2 months solid, and it's just very challenging. However, my baby is at his grandma's house today, and I have a solid block of time unless Caleb gets home crazy early, which I will be a little annoyed about. But let's see if I can actually get this done. I'm trying a new format. This is completely unscripted because scripting takes a long time, and then when I write scripts they tend to balloon because I'm just enjoying the writing, and then it turns into a 45-minute video. So I'm going to attempt to make shorter, more concise videos about more narrow and defined topics. So today we're going to talk about the one and only sewing project I did the entire 9 months I was pregnant, which is the bedding for my baby's cradle, which is an antique Eastlake cradle from the 1870s. So I bought that cradle off of Facebook Marketplace. It was a pretty good deal, but it was also pretty rough. Caleb had to do a good bit of work to it to get it up to this point. The rocking mechanism was all locked up, so he had to completely take it apart and rebuild it. He also had to reinforce it because it was very wobbly. But the next thing I needed to do was make a mattress, so that's where this video picks up. To make this mattress, my goal was for it to adhere to modern safety standards, but also be practical and functional, and if at all possible, use natural fibers. Looking online, I actually found a cradle mattress that you can just buy that has a cotton canvas cover and is filled with wool batting, which was really cool. However, it was like $300. That was not going to happen. But it seemed pretty simple, and I figured I can make something like that. So a little bit more research, and I found queen-size quilt batting that was also made out of wool, and this was $42. So I bought a roll of it, hoping that if I cut it up and piled it thick enough, it would be dense enough for one roll to form a mattress. The end result was a stack about 4 inches tall that squished down to about 1.5 inches tall, which most of the cradle mattresses I had seen online were between 1 and 3 inches anyways, so that seemed about perfect. To cover it, I'm going to use blue striped cotton ticking because you have to. A cradle like this has to have a blue striped ticking mattress. However, I had one idea in my head that I just could not let go of, which was that it needed to have piping around the edges. I think it's just like that in all of the old movies, or at least I thought it was, so that's what I was trying to go with. So I spent a ton of time making all of this piping cord, and then inserting the piping cord around the sides. However, I hated the finished product because it was so wavy and I couldn't get it to lay flat. But I went ahead and stuffed it with my batting and pinned up the opening. Okay, well, trying it in the cradle, it's not as good as I was hoping for, but it's not terrible. I like the feel of it. It feels nice and soft, but not too squishy. I don't know, the whole thing just seems kind of bigger and baggier than it ought to be. And then, of course, I don't like the rippling. That did not disappear like I was hoping it would. Yeah, the method I tried to do, it would have worked perfectly fine if I'd just been using a slab of foam, but this batting is just way too squishy and there's not enough internal structure to keep its shape. So let me think on it and then I'll decide what to do. So after thinking about it for a few days, I decided to basically just give it another shot. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because it sucked. It was way worse than the first time around. I tried to tighten it up and remove some of that bagginess and floppiness, and it ended up being way too tight and firm and just, it looked like a pillow. It looked nothing like a mattress. And then, of course, when I put it in the cradle, it was way too small, and it was like rising up in the middle. It did not look at all like something a baby should sleep on. So, moving right along to my third attempt. For my third attempt, I decided to just keep everything very simple. Instead of leaving just a narrow opening along one side, I decided to slit the entire back in half and then sew up just the two ends, leaving a wide opening down the center that I could insert the batting through without having to do that whole rolled up sausage. I used a much narrower strip for the middle portion, and then I sewed it without any piping whatsoever. The batting was much easier to insert this way, and then I just pinned up the mattress down the back, and I took a moment to put it in the cradle to make sure that I'd gotten the size right finally. And then I sewed up that back opening by hand with just a simple whip stitch. It doesn't really need to be strong because I'm going to be adding tufting. So to make the tufting, I used a ruler and pins to make a grid, and then I removed every other pin to... Well, hello. And then I removed every other pin to stagger them. I wasn't going to buy buttons for this project, but I also knew that there was no way I was going to find enough matching ones in my button stash, so I went with just a nice mismatch collection. There's some glass ones in there, there's some shell buttons, plastic, bone, so I don't know, they look cool to me. Sewing the buttons on really should not have taken that long. I should have just used a really thick button thread and then only put them through one time and just tied it real tight in the back. Instead, I used just regular sewing thread and tried to stitch it through like 8 or 10 times and then like tighten it up as I went, which was very inefficient, and this project ended up taking way too long because of that. But the end result was really nice. It was everything I was hoping for. Okay, the next stage of this project is a little bit more complicated to explain, but it's also the most interesting part. As you know, babies have leaky diapers, they spit up, there's a lot of fluids involved, and it would be such a shame to let this beautiful new mattress get trashed. However, it would almost be an equal shame to just throw a plastic sheet over it. But I had an idea based off of cloth diapering. I use wool diapers for Ajax, and the way wool diapering works is absolutely fascinating. You use 2 layers of diapers. The inner diaper is a dense, absorbent cotton, and the outer diaper is made from wool. The wool has been treated with lanolin. Lanolin is the natural oils produced by a sheep to protect the wool on its body, to shed rainwater, to keep it clean from dirt. It's antibacterial, antimicrobial. It's really interesting stuff. So if you soak a wool diaper cover in water that has been emulsified with lanolin, the lanolin will be drawn into the wool and it will come out not waterproof, but water resistant, which is where the inner cotton diaper comes in. The moisture soaks into the cotton diaper, but then is repelled away from the wool back towards the cotton. It's just such a cool thing of nature, and it gave me an idea. If you can lanolinize a diaper cover, why can't you lanolinize a mattress pad? So I have some thick 100% wool broadcloth that I bought from Burnley and Trowbridge years ago. It's a little bit expensive if I had been buying it specifically for this project, but this is technically stash busting because I have no plans for this wool. To make my mattress pads, I cut a length of the wool to match my mattress, and then I cut that into 3 different pads. I rounded out the corners, and then to hem them, I just serged around it. I am not a snob when it comes to serging. Sometimes it really is the best thing to use, and in this case, if I had tried to fold that thick wool over and hem it, it would have just been so unnecessarily bulky. So, serging it is. Now, for lanolinizing it, this was my first time using lanolin oil, and I didn't do it exactly right. But basically, all you need to do is take a glob of lanolin oil and dissolve it in very hot water, and then pour it into a tub of warm water to soak your wool in. What I should have done, and what I now do with the diapers, is I use a lot less lanolin oil, and then I also mix it with about double the amount of Eucelon wool wash, which really helps with the emulsification. And then I use way hotter water, the hottest I can get it from the tap, and I put it in a jar instead of a mixing bowl, and then that way I can just shake it to mix everything up and emulsify it really well. The trouble I had here is I used way too much lanolin oil and the water wasn't hot enough, and I didn't have the soap to help emulsify it, so I had a really hard time getting the lanolin to dissolve properly, and then on the mattress pads it made them a little bit kind of sticky, just because it didn't properly penetrate the fibers. However, I mean, it's still functional. It's a trial and error, you learn as you go kind of thing. So I left the wool to soak overnight, and then the next day I dumped out the water and squeezed out as much of the excess as I could. The important thing with wool is that you never want to wring it, because you can stretch it and distort it. But what you can do is roll it up in a towel and apply pressure to squeeze out as much water as possible. And then simply hang it up to dry. All right, here we go. Picking this project back up again. It is now June. Apologies if I sound nasally. Allergy season is kicking my butt. So that was pretty much it for the interesting part of this project. Let's run down real quickly what else I did. I made a pillow to go with the cradle set. I know that you're not supposed to have pillows in babies' cribs, and he has not had it in there with him. I just felt like it looked a little barren. So I had some down feather filling that I took out of a different pillow, and I tried making a pillow. So this pillow is how I learned the definition of ticking. At first I tried using some of that Burnley & Trowbridge wool broadcloth covered with my fake cotton ticking. Because I say fake because it has the blue ticking pattern, but it's not actually woven tightly like ticking fabric is supposed to be. So those two layers, the feathers started wheedling their way through the wool and it became like a pincushion of a pillow. So I started over with some real cotton ticking. This stuff is very, very thin, lightweight, but it's actually densely woven and actually does keep the feathers in. After that, I made a bunch of crib sheets, way more crib sheets than I actually needed. I definitely fell into the, but the fabric's pretty fallacy, because I made a bunch of crib sheets and then I made a bunch of matching pillowcases for the little pillow. So let's see how it all turned out. First off, those 3 slats were just not going to cut it. So first I put down a piece of pegboard. It's nice and strong, but it's perforated, which keeps moisture and heat from getting trapped beneath the mattress. I love little details that are both beautiful and functional, and I think my favorite part about this mattress is the tufting created by the buttons. With them, the mattress doesn't sit flush against my baby's skin. It creates a whole series of little air pockets that allow hot air and moisture to drain away from his skin and then escape through the mattress. It's pretty cool, and he has slept very well on it, even during the summer heat. The wool mattress pads have also done the job perfectly. No trace of staining has made it through to the mattress. On top of the mattress pad, I layer raggedy old pre-fold diapers that I found at a garage sale. I got them early in the pregnancy, and I'm glad that I didn't end up having to use them as diapers just because they're so raggedy. But they work perfectly here. To keep the sheet nicely tucked under and to keep Ajax from being able to pull it up, I fold it all around the mattress and then I pin it on the underside. As I mentioned, he doesn't actually sleep with the nice little pillow, it's more for display. But it has turned into a good little back support when he's playing sitting up now. He has started using a pillow, but it is a pillow designed specifically for babies to try to keep their head from getting flat. Maybe at some point I'll make a nice little matching pillowcase for it too. But yeah, this is my baby's cradle. I love it so much. It's so beautiful. Rocking him to sleep in it when he was a newborn was so helpful too. I'm going to keep Ajax sleeping in it for as long as I can. I might have to do something else once he starts trying to climb out of it. But at that point, I'll just put it in storage for any other baby I may have, and hopefully it'll become a family heirloom. Even if none of my kids are interested in having it later on, it's a 150-year-old cradle, and with the refurbishing we did, my greatest hope with this project is that, one way or another, it'll last another 150 years.
Ajax, say hi. What's that black thing? Good morning, chickens. Good morning, babies. Barbosa. So the state of our flock is definitely sad. We only have 12 of our original chickens from last year. Actually, only 9 of those are ones you've seen before. 3, look at him, ugh. 3 of them are chickens that we hatched here last year. But yeah, no, we had horrible predator issues all year long. So this year we have been in a major rebuilding mode. I got a bunch of babies either that we hatched from our eggs, or we hatched from my mother-in-law's eggs, or I bought in lots off of Craigslist and Facebook. So these are some of our new little babies. And then in the blue box, this is Ratchet. This isn't the original Ratchet. This is her daughter. We lost the original Ratchet. But she's got 4 little babies down in there that she hatched all by herself. Hi there. That one's really sweet. Say hi, buddy. You like coming to see the chickens. He loves coming out to see the chickens. He could just sit there and watch the chickens all day long. And Goose. Goose is our head rooster. He's not particularly good at it, but Jack and Barbosa are his sons, and neither are they. I'm hoping with this new batch of babies we'll have a couple good roosters. Is that your kitty cat? Is that your kitty cat, buddy? Oh, you like seeing your kitty cat? I should also give you a garden update. So last year I was pregnant, obviously. Last year we got the fencing put up and we built the garden beds, and then I lost control of the garden. And this year we filled in some of the garden beds. I've got herbs planted and strawberries, which are going real well. We're working on a path. That was my lettuce garden. We put down mulch in between all of the beds to keep the weeds out, and then here we are a couple months later and I'm losing control of the garden again. However, the strawberry patch is growing wonderfully. We actually got a decent load of strawberries this year, which I wasn't expecting at all. But yeah, now it's all completely gone to weeds again. And I got tomatoes coming in. Oh, looks like some of those could be ripe, yeah. So I really need to get out here and at least unbury the tomato plants. This is ridiculous. I will say, gardening is something that I feel is very important, and I feel like I need to do, but it's definitely not my passion. Not in the way that I spend way more time with the chickens than I want to in a garden. So maybe I bit off way more than I can chew. I'm beginning to realize that it's probably going to take probably like 10 years before I have this place actually completely planted and manageable each year. I'm going to need more irrigation. I need more like paths, like we're going to put in pavers in this middle section, but I probably need that between all of the garden beds just to keep the weeds down there. But yeah, the garden's, it's progressed. And every time I come out here, Jinx wallers in the strawberry plants just because she knows that I don't like it. But she does come out here and hunt mice and keep the rabbits out, so that's all good. So yeah, I guess I'll see you next time. Mwah. Thanks for watching.